Welcome to Walls on Wire. Today, we're talking about Puad Zarkashi's take on the recent alcohol controversy surrounding the tourism minister. So, yeah, we're jumping straight into a pretty significant political spat, really. It involves Datuk Seri Tiong King Singh, who's the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture.
Hmm.
And on the other side, you've got Datuk Puad Zarkashi from UMNO, who's, well, never shy about speaking his mind.
No, definitely not. And this whole thing really boils down to a clash between, how things look politically versus the kind of practical needs of international business.
Right.
The flashpoint was this dinner, wasn't it, held during the global travel meeting?
Yeah, organized by the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Board. And the whole fuss kicked off just because alcoholic drinks were served there.
Seems simple on the surface, but politically, not so much. So Tiong King Singh, the minister, he responded pretty quickly, didn't he?
He did. He came out with a defense that really hinged on one specific point, a kind of technicality. What was his main argument there?
Well, his core defense was basically to shift responsibility away from the government. He made it very clear. The alcohol, supplied and managed totally by private operators.
Okay.
And crucially, he stressed that zero government money, not one ringgit from the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Board either, went towards buying that alcohol.
Right, so purely a private vendor thing, catering to international attendees.
Exactly. That was a line he drew in the sand.
But that distinction, government cash versus private provision, I mean, is that really enough of a shield, especially when the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Board is the organizer? They're hosting this big global travel meeting.
That's the crux of it, isn't it?
They're the face of Malaysia for this event.
Precisely. Tiong was aiming for that, legal and budgetary separation, show they're careful of public money. But the optics, well, that's where Puad Zarkashi came in, arguing it looks totally different from a cultural responsibility standpoint.
So Tiong saying, look, we set up the meeting, but the venue handled the drinks for their international crowd.
Kind of, yeah. Separating the state entity from the, let's say, the hospitality side provided by others.
And that's exactly the point Puad Zarkashi hammered home. He wasn't buying it. Called the explanation too superficial and far-fetched.
Yeah, he wasn't interested in the accounting details. For him, it was about the ethics of being the host nation.
Right.
And his critique was quite sharp, really. He laid out basically four main arguments challenging the minister's stance, especially given Malaysian political and cultural norms.
Okay, let's unpack those. They seem pretty central to the whole ethical debate.
Yeah.
First up was organizer responsibility, you said?
Yeah. Puad argued that it doesn't matter who footed the bill for the drinks. Since the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Board organized and hosted the meeting, they own the responsibility for everything that happened at that dinner. You can't just, outsource your national image.
Makes sense. The host sets the standard. What was next?
Then he brought up the attendance context. He pointed out, quite reasonably, that there would have been many government officials there, plus a good number of Muslim attendees.
Uh-huh.
So he argued the organizers really should have advised against serving alcohol, maybe even insisted on a dry event, just out of basic respect for the attendees and the host country's sensitivity.
Okay, that's clear. And then he tackled the economic angle Tiong often uses.
He did. He pushed back hard on the idea that you need alcohol for tourism. Puad's point was blunt. Foreign tourists don't come to Malaysia just because they can get a drink. He basically dismissed that whole rationale.
Called it baseless, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. And his final point was about the promotional angle. He questioned, would any serious foreign travel agency ever actually market Malaysia as some kind of free drinking destination?
Right, implying that's not our selling point anyway.
Exactly. He's saying the minister's economic argument doesn't even hold water because Malaysia's attractions are our culture, our food, our natural beauty, not unlimited booze.
And this is where Puad got quite creative with his language, wasn't it? He used that analogy.
Yes, the mabuk analogy. Very effective.
Explain that one.
Well, he said, look, it's not just wine that makes you mabuk or drunk. Some people get seasick, mabuk clout. But he felt drunk, dizzy, confused, just listening to the minister's flimsy explanation.
Huh. That's clever political messaging.
Oh, absolutely. Using a really common, everyday Malay word, mabuk, to suggest the minister's logic was just completely disorienting. It makes the criticism stick, makes it memorable. Very savvy use of local culture to land a political punch.
Okay, so the battle line's clear. Puad is all about cultural ethics, sticking to local sensitivities. Tiong's trying to manage the realities of global business. Now, we have to shift gears a bit and look at the pressure Tiong is under. The need to be pragmatic, especially when dealing with international partners. Let's try and understand why someone might actually side with the minister here.
Okay, right. If you zoom out, Tiong Sing's job is basically chief marketing officer for Malaysia's tourism, and it's a fiercely competitive world out there.
Yeah.
Every big event, like this global travel meeting, it's a pitch. You're up against Singapore, Bangkok, maybe others, for big international conventions, for deals, for high-spending tourists. You really can't afford to seem difficult or too restrictive culturally.
That's the heart of it, isn't it? His role demands bringing in the big bucks deals potentially worth millions and millions of ringgit, creating jobs, getting foreign currency. If Malaysia gets a reputation for being tricky to navigate for these international players, those big meetings, they just go elsewhere. Thailand, Singapore, they're right there.
Absolutely. And the global travel industry, well, it has its norms. And having private vendors provide drinks, including alcohol, at a networking event, that's pretty standard internationally.
So Tiong's quick clarification saying it was private, no government funds, it was probably aimed more outwards than inwards.
I think so. Less about calming Puad, more about reassuring the international travel industry. Look, Malaysia's practical, we understand business norms, we won't impose unnecessary constraints on your private events.
It's a signal then. We're open for business, we'll make it work within our laws. But wow, what a tightrope to walk. Balancing domestic politics with global economic demands.
A very tricky tightrope, because if you insist on a completely dry environment for every single aspect of a major international trade show, well, you might just scare off the very people you're trying to attract, the international buyers.
And losing them means losing serious money.
Potentially huge amounts. We're talking about buyers who book group trips worth millions of ringgit. Flexibility is absolutely key for them. Puad's stance, while consistent from a cultural ethics view, perhaps overlooks the reality that these buyers operate based on expectations set globally.
They don't want to feel singled out or restricted during what's essentially a business networking reception.
Exactly. It's not like it was a state banquet funded by taxpayers.
Yeah.
It was a specific function within a larger trade meeting.
This really brings up a fundamental question about how Malaysia presents itself. Puad argues our culture and natural beauty are enough, and they are major draws, no doubt. But Tiong's job specifically involves securing that high-value MICE market meetings, incentives, conventions, exhibitions, and that sector often expects certain international hospitality standards.
It does.
So it forces us to ask, is losing a potential, say, 100 million ringgit convention worth the political win of ensuring a completely dry environment, even if it's just in one private part of the venue?
It seems Tiong is caught trying to speak to two very different audiences simultaneously. He needs to show figures like Puad that he respects local sensitivities, hence the private funding point.
Right.
But at the same time, signal to the global industry that Malaysia is business-friendly and understands international norms. He's getting criticized for trying to bridge that gap.
It's fascinating because this incident, just about drinks at a dinner, really exposes that underlying tension. How does Malaysia balance being a modern, competitive global player with being a nation deeply rooted in its own cultural and religious values?
Tiong seems to be leaning towards economic pragmatism, while Puad is championing ethical consistency. Both views have value, but when they collide head-on like this, the minister's in a really tough spot.
Almost an impossible situation, you could say.
Well, his main goal had to be making the global travel meeting a success, right? Because that ultimately benefits the whole country's economy. So maybe, from that perspective, allowing the private vendors that flexibility while making sure the government wasn't paying or officially endorsing it, maybe that was the most practical path.
Trying to get the economic benefit while minimizing the political fallout. Just navigating international standards without actually breaking local laws or norms overtly.
Possibly. That seems like the tightrope he was attempting to walk.
So, thinking about this whole situation, what does it mean for you listening to this and for Malaysian tourism going forward, given how much we need to attract that global investment, those tourism ringgit? Where should the line actually be drawn?
Yeah. When the Malaysia Tourism Promotion Board hosts these big international events, how far does their duty to uphold local cultural expectations go? Does it override the practical demands of competing in the global travel market?
Does Malaysian hospitality need to bend a little sometimes to meet the commercial expectations of international guests for, say, one evening function? Or do we stand firm on our domestic standards always, even if it means losing out on those multi-million ringgit deals to our neighbors?
It's a tough balance. Culture, politics, and hard economics all tangled up together.
Definitely a lot to think about there. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.